coming up.
You put your house on the market, a buyer offers on it, 6 months later they could pull out just before exchange, walk away and have no penalty. It's like, it's crazy when you think about it. It's natural, I think, for anyone to be afraid of talking to a solicitor or a lawyer. It's like, oh my God, they're going to speak like a different language.
It's quite formal.
We try and dumb it down in the nicest way and try and just get on their page and just try and talk at their language. Yeah, time kills deals.
Yeah.
And it gets worse because the longer it goes on for, the more work that gets put in.
Yeah.
Also, you've got to start again. I don't want to be negative. Hopefully this will change and it will change for the good. It can't get any worse, I think is the fair thing to say.
I remember getting the pack through, the seller's pack to complete and the protocol forms and the fixtures and fittings form. And I looked at it and it was an absolute wedge and I thought, I'll leave that until tomorrow. Welcome back to our podcast, where today you join us in our high-budget podcast studio. And we've got a very special guest. Welcome to Nick Ponting, Chief Operations Officer at Montpellier Legal. But Nick, you're not just your average solicitor, are you? Nick has got a fantastic series on Prime Video. You also host... Would you say it's your own little podcast style interview? Something like that, isn't
it? Could you call it?
A car cast.
Like that.
I love that. Who's in the AMI? And in a very cool way, is the EV land speed record holder. I'd love you to tell us about that to start with. Let's start there.
That's an intro. Thank you. It's good to be here.
You're welcome. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's it sounds quite random and varied, I guess, doesn't it? I mean, 99.9% of my time is running Montpellier Legal, as you guys know. But yeah, away from that, have presented a car show on Amazon, did break a land speed record in 2012, which was good. It was good fun. And then have our own very similar, it's like this, a podcast, but literally out on the road in a daft little car.
Yeah.
Bringing some special guests along. So, yeah.
So I think where we'd like to start is just give us a little intro. Tell us a bit more about Montpellier Legal, how it was formed, what the concept is. Let's start there.
Yeah, so rewind. I mean, I was an estate agent for best part of 15 years. So feel your pain, probably, from in terms of, we'll come on to it, I'm sure, in terms of issues in the process, how long the process can take. But sort of then jumping forward, Montpellier Legal was formed in 2021. So Simon, who I work alongside, been a lawyer for 20 years, set it up. I'd known Simon for years, having sent work to him in his previous firm. And yeah, we always joked about it would be good. It's very rare, and you'll know this, to get any synergy between an agent and a lawyer.
Definitely.
And I had synergy with him, and it was like I could trust if I sent a client to him, whether it be a buyer or seller, he was going to do a good job. So we kind of joked for years it'd be good to do something together. I joined him 6-8 months after Montpellier was launched, so it started in 21. I was filming the car show at the time, so as soon as that was finished, I joined Simon. And we've grown it in 5 years. We've got 125 staff now, branch network of 13 offices, just do conveyancing. And genuinely, I know it's easy for me to say it, but genuinely try and do it properly.
Yeah.
There's, without claiming I know everything, or Simon knows everything, or Lucy, our fellow director, knows everything, we get what's important. Whether it be working with the client, the agent, we do genuinely try, and reviews that you'll see online, we try and make a difference.
Yeah.
So.
Phenomenal. That sounds
We've had great
brilliant.
feedback as well.
We have had great feedback, yes.
And we weren't even paid to say that.
We weren't. Not yet, anyway.
Not
that,
yet.
that comes later, doesn't it? We're going to jump into something a little bit different today, aren't we? So, Matt, shall I leave this one for you to introduce?
Yes.
Okay.
So, we're going to do a little quiz. It's going to stay on topic, and it's going to be you two going up against each other.
Okay, so Tim versus Nick.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is it. Tim versus Nick.
I feel like I'm on the back foot here if it's a conveyancing quiz.
You probably know.
No pressure.
So the first one is going to be average conveyancing costs in other countries versus the UK.
Okay.
And I want a figure from you guys.
Okay. I don't know the answers, by the way.
Sure.
I am genuinely
No,
sure.
it doesn't know. So it suggests the average in the UK is around £2,440 for sale and purchase.
For sale and purchase.
Okay. So the first country is Spain. Now I want a figure. And to be fair, we could just go low or higher, couldn't we?
Okay.
So you guys tell me whether you think it's more expensive than the UK or cheaper than the UK.
Who's going first?
I'll let you go first. You're our guest.
That's very kind. But whatever I say, you're going to go the opposite.
Probably. Yes, probably.
Lower.
I also think it's lower.
Okay. It's more expensive.
Okay.
Average £3,200.
Wow.
Montpellier Legal, Spain. Here we come.
Yeah, I was going to say. Okay, North America, lower or higher?
Higher.
I agree, higher.
Lower.
Wow.
We're not doing very well so far, are we?
Right on £2,000, so not much lower.
Okay.
But it's lower. Norway.
And we've got to split it here, haven't we?
Go on then.
Higher.
Lower.
Lower.
Okay.
£1,285.
In Norway?
Yeah, exactly. That's what
Well,
I
I mean,
thought.
I'm going to Norway soon. That bodes well if I want to do a conveyancing.
I think everything else is more expensive. Though. And then finally, Australia, lower or higher?
I'm going to say lower.
For the win, higher.
Lower.
1-1, I make that.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. That's annoying, isn't it?
There's another part to the quiz.
That's good.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Over 2 average completion time. So same countries.
Yeah.
Obviously, you both know or should know. UK is around about 12 to 16 weeks.
Yeah.
So we're going to go first with Spain.
They can see.
No, they can't.
To be fair, I can't see. So we're
fast,
doing...
faster or slower?
Yeah,
Spain first. So guess average.
Faster in Spain.
So I'll say slower.
Okay, so it's faster. Spain complete in an average 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow.
So North America, faster or slower than England?
Faster.
I'm going to say faster as well.
4 to 6 weeks. So
I'm going to say
faster.
there's a theme here that every country is faster than the UK.
You never know. You
Yeah.
never know.
I think you might be onto it. Okay.
Norway.
Faster.
Faster.
Correct.
Okay.
4 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, and lastly, Australia.
Doesn't take a genius.
Faster.
Indeed. So 4 to 8 weeks again in Australia.
Okay. This is the
Why does
question,
it take
then,
so
isn't it?
long?
So why, Nick, why does it take so long, in your opinion?
I reckon that's the most asked question from an estate agent, a buyer, a seller. Why?
Yeah.
Literally, why does it take so long?
Certainly
and I
is
ask
for us.
myself, why does it take so long? It's like there's so many answers you can give, and so many variables in a transaction. But more importantly, there's so much that can be done to make it quicker. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah.
The answer is it shouldn't take anywhere near as long as it takes. That's the easy thing to say.
Yeah.
And it's proof, it's evidence. But other countries have got probably different laws, different processes, but ultimately you're still transacting on a property.
Yeah.
And it's like there is a process involved, A to Z process. Each part of that process should not take, I mean, you said 12 to 16 weeks, I think that's generous. I mean, there's probably, being really realistic, there's cases that 16, 20 weeks. And I know from being an agent, you're going to feel the pain. The longer a deal goes on for, what happens? The higher chance it falls through.
Absolutely.
So I think there's lots of variables. Without sort of sitting here slating the industry, slating other firms and stuff, I think there's a lot of very traditional firms who have got their way of working. So they're very manual. They won't deviate from that. They're not very dynamic. They're practicing lots of different areas of law, so they're not specialists in it. So there's I could list like hundreds of reasons why, and then you've got all the variables on a transaction itself. So you can have, it might be that someone gets a survey too late in the day, people aren't quite clear up front in terms of how they're funding a transaction, it becomes apparent a bit later on. So there's lots of, there can be a lot of excuses bandied about, which I think is what estate agents and what sellers and buyers get more frustrated about.
Yeah.
But I think in reality, in the main, there's lots of really hard work that goes on behind the scenes to get deals through. But I don't think, from a lawyer's perspective in general, in the main, they're not quite aligned, in my opinion, in terms of what everyone else wants from the transaction. So legal work has got to be done properly. It's a highly regulated sector.
Yeah.
But equally, what I would say is equally as important during a transaction is actually communicating during. Because it might be that it's obvious this is going to take longer, but let people know that's going to happen.
I think it's very important to kind of educate people
Yeah.
of the process before it happens as well. Because the more that they know about that, the better that it is throughout.
I think that's really fair, and I think it's often the case, isn't it, that people don't move house that frequently, so they have a complete lack of understanding in a lot of cases, hence your point is really valid about education. So if you had complete autonomy then, what would you change in the conveyancing process? Potentially to speed it up?
I think getting prepared early is super important. So, like, break it down to two bits. If you're a seller and a seller's putting a property on the market, it makes total sense for them to get prepared early on, because that that part of the process can take, it could take 2 days, but it could take literally 3 or 4 weeks, depending on how organised the seller is. And there's so many instances that we see where we're acting on behalf of a buyer, we don't get anything from the seller's lawyer for 4 weeks, 5 weeks. That is like lost time, that not really a lot can happen. There's bits that can happen in the background, but we're waiting on a contract back from a seller's solicitor at the time. And if that's taken that long, you've worked really, really hard, seller's got a great house, you've done loads of viewings, marketed it really well, you get to the point where you've got a buyer at the right price, all momentum just goes. Agents are busy, you're then onto the next trying to find another buyer for another house. You sort of sit there and think, I've not heard anything. Weeks are going by and nothing's happened.
Yeah.
So we're like genuinely really passionate about trying to make sure sellers are onboarded nice and early.
Yeah.
They do it with you guys. They've got to fill out forms, fixtures and fittings, for all the kind of stuff that you need to know to be able to collate your collateral. But I think for us, it's like, get yourself prepared as early as possible. We're able to make a start straight away then. As soon as a buyer comes along, we're acting for a seller, we can issue a contract immediately.
Yeah.
Keep the momentum up, because ultimately, if you can save those 3, 4, 5 weeks at the start, it's probably more like the end game, which is actually saved, because you're not getting to a point of 20 weeks where a buyer's going, do you know what? I'm hearing in the news rates are about to go up, or the government's changed. There's a bit of uncertainty. What's happening? Novelty. It's not like the novelty of the property wears off, but the excitement of actually, I want to get this done. I think
Totally goes.
The laboured process really does impact.
It does feel like that first month. It does not much gets
Slow.
done.
Correct.
It's quite common. It's quite a common theme, isn't it, when you discuss it with a progressor?
Yeah.
And if you put that into context, that's another mortgage payment for people, and that's a significant additional expense that doesn't really need to be there, does it?
Yeah.
That's what, if you're saying that's what I would pin the majority of the problem down to. The first 4 weeks, not getting off to a quick start.
Yeah.
I guarantee you the transactions which go through quicker are the ones that get off to a fast start.
Sure.
Legal work happens straight away.
Yeah.
Because once the work started, it very rarely does it then get dragged out a lot. And there's lots of there's other reasons, like sort of alluded to it, about like traditional firms. And this isn't sort of to point a finger at a firm who works in a traditional way, but when you sort of strip it all back, you've got firms who, I think it's changing now. I think it definitely is changing for the better. But there's firms who time record, so they're billing on every single hour that they spend on a case, right? So without sort of exactly saying it, what's the sort of
where's the
advantage
incentive
and
to get it through
actually
faster?
move that deal through efficiently? And it's not all about speed and rushing things through. It's just about that's like completely the wrong end of the spectrum in terms of what if a client thinks, right, I've got a deadline, I want to get in by that time. The lawyer's thinking, the more I can bill, the more hours I spend on a case, the more money I can bill.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, and I think lawyers who work in that way would probably say, well, hang on, that's really, really unfair, and not. But it's not to sort of say you're not doing it the right way, but we work in a completely different way. It's a fixed fee basis. We work out right at the start of the transaction how much legal work is going to be involved here. We can't rush the legal work. It's not a substitute for actually rushing that. It's let's get that done properly, but let's work efficiently with the people involved.
Sure.
Do you guys have a target that you want to try and achieve on a regular basis in terms of timescales to get things through?
Yeah.
Because obviously we do, and it's just I just wondered whether a conveyancer does.
Yeah, I think with from like an actual time frame perspective, because there are so many variables. So for us to be able to measure that, we're onboarding sellers before the property's sold, but we can the best way of measuring it is from when the buyers come along right through to exchange.
Yeah.
Yes, we can, but what we hear a lot is you're only as fast as the slowest law in the chain.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but the important thing, sort of the counter to that, is we can really influence that by actually then starting to chase up and down the chain and trying to be the proactive ones there.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of how the company operates, our whole legal team, because what you've got to remember is lawyers aren't salespeople. So you've got these two very different personalities on a transaction, not collaborating with each other that well, in most cases.
Yeah.
Because in fairness to a lawyer, their job and what they've studied years and years for at university, they want to do legal work. That's what they're interested in. So there's some who are very, very commercially minded, and we try and be really, really picky with who we recruit in the firm. And the ones who it doesn't come naturally to, we'll try and train them to explain the advantages of working with estate agents, ringing the seller back when they call them, speaking to the buyer to make sure they know what's going on.
Yeah.
Because that, I think, if you asked a client at the start of a transaction what's important, communication's probably the main
Number
thing,
one.
I
Yeah,
would say.
up there.
Speed is important, whether that's I want to go really fast or actually I want to sort of work at my pace.
Yeah.
And then efficiency, just work efficiently. Let's just know what's going on. What our ethos is, if we do what we say we're going to do over and over, I'm not sitting here claiming that we're absolutely perfect, but we try and make sure we get it, basically. We get what's important to try and actually get transactions through, but it's not going to happen, but try and look at the bigger picture and think, let's work well with the people who can influence the deal, i.e. estate agents, brokers, and introducers.
And presumably your background in estate agency obviously positively influences that at Montpellier Legal as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's helped massively, I think, because I don't claim to know it all, but it definitely, I can feel the pain points.
Yeah.
So when whether that's literally from when you're trying to get a lead across to us in the first place and us trying to convert that right through to completion and all those points in between, we do understand it. And I'm not the only ex-estate agent within the firm. We've got loads of people who have come out of agency who now work for us in different roles, in our legal teams, in our sales teams, all over the firm, sort of operationally as well. So yeah, real mix, and having a few heads within the firm like that definitely helps.
So they understand.
You know the timescales. That's what I thought about last night.
Go on.
Can you remember stamp duty holiday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was loads of solicitors out there that would say, well, if you pay this extra amount, we can guarantee we'll get it through.
Yeah.
And I just think to myself, well, can't you just get it through anyway?
Yeah. So they prove that sort of proves during that process it can be done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what I thought, it's like agents, lawyers are proving that they can do the work if
Yeah.
they put their mind to it. I think in a lot of cases, I could sit and talk about it all day, there are firms who take on unprecedented amounts of work. So they just flood their legal teams with way too much work and they can't cope with it. We've got like qualified lawyers who don't fear and who spend all week looking at the sort of the case count that we've got operationally to make sure that no legal team is running too hot.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and we'll purposely leave capacity within our legal teams to make sure that we can do quick cases where needed.
Yeah.
So if we've got one of you guys says, look, we've got a seller, we've got a buyer, they want to get this deal done quickly. We'll make sure we've always got capacity to be able to do that. Yes, you charge more to do it because there's a lot more resource, a lot more hands on deck to actually get that done.
Yeah.
And we've done deals within 24, 48 hours. You get a cash transaction where searches say aren't needed and you can indemnify the searches and you can literally get 2 lawyers working on that case very quickly. It needs a lot of work and it needs intense work for that period of time. It can be done. The deals can be done quick.
See, that's really reassuring because, you know, if I think back to when I started in agency 22 years ago, you know, I used to remember the cash transactions that were through in under a week.
Yeah.
And it feels like, to a large extent, those days are gone. But actually, it can be done still,
100%.
which is superb.
Yeah, 100%. And when you've got a stamp duty holiday, it proves that. You sort of think, okay, but that shouldn't have to happen for you to go, actually, this work can be done quickly.
But is there less conveyancers out there that want to advertise that? Do they want
Or
to
willing
drag out
to
the
do it,
process?
Yeah, it puts that you'd argue that there's an element of risk because you do something quickly. First thing people think is, well, hang on, you've done that a bit quick. Have you rushed that? But ultimately, when you actually break down what a typical case looks like, how much sort of touch points there are throughout that case, and how many hours you spend on the case, it's not a lot different probably from 24, 40 hours of intense work, working day and night when you break it down. So it's a challenging industry, if I'm honest. Like to try, we're one of very few that only do conveyancing. So most law firms will have lots of different areas of law.
Yeah.
And conveyancing, we spoke about fees. Like the fees in the UK for a conveyancing service, for a buy and sell, they're not that high, and it's very, very competitive because you've got lots of online players who are super cheap. So like the stack 'em high, sell 'em cheap type service, where service levels are not particularly good. You might get lucky. You might get a lawyer who isn't on holiday for 2 or 3 months or whatever. You've got that one person. You've got a very easy chain, and it goes through. And the client gets to the end of it and think, wow, I've paid a few £100, it's worked. But you've only got to look online and look at reviews and hear experiences that the vast majority of cases don't go like that, and they're bad, and that's what can then let a chain down.
Yeah.
So having specialists, local's important. I think having local knowledge is good, or people who, whether they're actually based in the area or actually are used to doing transactions in the area, that goes with something as well.
Sure.
But just people resource. We've got 120, 130 staff who all they do is conveyancing. They don't do anything else. So like, there's nothing we haven't seen in the nicest way. So it's like, so you might get a slightly complex style transaction on a firm who doesn't do a lot of conveyancing, and they bulk, and then like 6-8 weeks into it, then that's the type of thing that can then elongate it without having the experience.
What would be classed as a red flag to conveyancers that kind of gets you really nervous when you're opening a file? What?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think probably similar to you guys really, funding, where money's coming from, anything that we're a bit unsure about from a client's point of view. Because this is another thing as well, like there'll sometimes be radio silence on a case. You might be dealing with a case, you can't get hold of a lawyer, what's going on? There might be good reason for that. It might be that they're suspicious about something, and for whatever reason they can't communicate that with you guys. So we're sometimes put in a slightly uncomfortable position. If we sort of suspect something, we've got to make a report. can't then tip that off to the agent or anyone else. So, but it's few and far between. It's not that often. But I think all in all, it's not I wouldn't say it's a highly regulated area for a reason. Lots of money changing hands regularly. For same with you, for your AML purposes. You've got to do your checks. You've got to make sure that you're happy and you're satisfied. But it's about doing the work properly. Once you're satisfied with the client, where the funds are coming from, that who you're dealing with is actually the person that you think you're dealing with. It's about getting your head down there and getting the work done properly.
Smooth tends to be.
I think linking that to what I said earlier about people moving not that frequently, I think source of funding is actually really alien to quite a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, why do I need to prove where these funds are coming from? And they just don't understand it, do they?
It gets a backup, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah, absolutely. And I think, well,
Crazy.
hang on, I've got this money and it's in the bank, and they're not understanding that they've got to prove where that's come from, and it's been transferred from here to there, and it ultimately came from some inheritance, let's say.
Yeah.
That's quite a complex process for somebody that hasn't moved for a long time to understand.
And intrusive.
Yeah.
People find it intrusive. They don't like to share it.
Yeah.
Like we even, I think you probably feel that more than we do, because they kind of feel to a lawyer that they have to do that.
Yes.
But to an agent, I remember in agency days, they're like, I think probably also from like a negotiation bargaining point of view, they offer something 400,000, they got 700 grand in the bank, so telling you they're broke.
Nudge them up a bit.
Yeah. But yeah, it's right, it's intrusive. People don't particularly like sharing that type of thing. So it's about, but again, it's about going about it in the right way.
Sure.
Getting it done as early as possible. So we spoke earlier about seller. From a buyer's point of view, we try and engage early-ish, but you can't do a lot until a buyer's obviously found a property and they want to move forward.
Agreed.
But the main thing is working collaboratively between everyone. So whether you've got the seller with you guys or the buyer, whoever's involved in that case, everyone working together trying to achieve the same goal.
So you know the government reform roadmap. Do you think it's going to speed up transactions, and do you think it's going to reduce fall throughs?
I think there's been so much talk for so long about what's going to happen. I mean, we're talking another few years before anything's changed. You'd like to think so, yes, because I think it's if what has been said is implemented, yes, but it's how firms then adopt that, because what we find is there's lots of good technology on the market now for us to be able to speed processes up as well. So we're a relatively modern firm. We are a modern firm in terms of a law firm. We've been able to start and then plug in basically the best in-breed technology that we can have to make sure our cases go through nice and quickly. So it makes us more efficient. We can take on more cases, slightly less touch points, and make the user journey better for clients. When you get firms who've been in business for 100 years and they're still doing things very manual, when you get a big change like that, it's how they then adapt with that. Because it'd be like old-fashioned estate agency. They've got their way of doing it, and you get a software company coming in saying, I'm going to answer all your questions, and you can
give you a CRM
use
to work
this,
from.
and it actually slows them down. So yes, I think that it's a positive move. It's kind of what we need, because I bet you that process is probably in all the countries we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like the Scottish system is similar in a way that they want you get commitment earlier on, and it's much more of a structured process rather than you put your house on the market, a buyer offers on it, 6 months later they could pull out just before exchange, walk away and have no penalty. It's crazy when you think about it.
I think
Absolutely.
if you gave everybody the choice, that would be their preferred.
It would.
Yeah.
100%.
And I think there's lots of companies trying to do something with it. Modern method of auction. There's lots, but because it's not this is the way you must do it. It's kind of not the norm. So even though people want it, they kind of don't all default to doing it. So,
It took the words out of my mouth. Modern method of auction is something that we do here, and it's seen as quite unconventional. So the circumstances have to be absolutely perfect for people to buy into it and understand. And of course, in most cases, that's obviously at a discount, isn't it? The dated property that needs work. If you could give a buyer or seller advice in terms of how to and what to look for when appointing a solicitor at the beginning of the transaction. You mentioned earlier things like fixed fees, people billing on their time. What would that advice be so they align themselves with the right solicitor?
I think we say a few things. So do your own homework. So reviews are super important. You think about how difficult it is, not just from a law firm point of view, but from an estate agency, to get consistent 5-star reviews. That's not easy because apart it's death, divorce, moving house, probably the three most stressful things that are going to happen in your life. So to try and keep buyers and sellers happy during that process and get a repeat business, 5-star reviews, Trustpilot, Google, whatever it is, I think that says a lot. So about a firm, actually, about their reputation. Taking your guys' advice. If a seller is going to trust you guys to sell the house, in my opinion, they should be trusting your judgment in terms of who you then use, because that is going to help. They don't have to take that recommendation, but I think it's only fair and reasonable for you to give that recommendation to them. This is the reason why I would do it, because they want recommendation on whether it's the right price, on what buyer they go with, all the other stuff. So why not actually the next part of the process, who's the right person to use?
I would just like to jump in at this point and say, if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to drop us a like. And if you're watching on Spotify, please follow us, because it really helps. It really helps support what we're doing and helps us get the best high-profile guests onto the podcast. He's in after you. So moving on from that shameless plug, have you got any horror stories? Anything that, you know, we've all dealt with thousands and thousands of transactions between us. So I'll allow an estate agency horror story from the old days, but have you got a particular horror story that you think, God, that was particularly scarring?
Without breaching a load of client confidentiality, actually, I ran a branch not long after I first started. It's probably like 10 years ago. We're sat around a morning meeting. One of the valuers, who's no longer an estate agent, so no one needs to worry. He's like, it's a great house, it's coming on the market, it's a 4-bed detached, there's this money. And I remember him ringing the seller, and the seller goes, how much? And he'd walked into one of the bedrooms twice, so it's actually a 3-bed. He had valued it about 150 grand more than anyone else. And she's like, yeah, I'm sure it's a great house, signed it up. And he went back there, looked at it, and he goes, where's the fault? He's like, yeah, he missed it.
Yeah.
So that was quite embarrassing to then have to make the call to say this is what happened.
Did he make the call?
I had to.
Oh,
Yeah.
He bottled it.
So, yeah, but he's no longer an agent, so no one needs to worry.
There's people out there that don't understand the process and don't know the process.
Yeah.
Could you very briefly, talked about touch points.
Yeah.
If you're a first-time buyer buying a house,
Yeah.
could you talk us through what a conveyancer needs to do to get that to completion?
Yeah, so working for a buyer is slightly different to working for a seller. Obviously, working for a buyer, the overall goal is to obviously make sure that what that client wants to buy is what is the right property to buy, in terms of making sure there's no restrictions, reviewing the contract part, asking questions, us being satisfied as the buyer's lawyer that we're satisfied on behalf of our client, and the lender, if there's a mortgage involved, that what they're buying is right, and making that they're buying a good property, and if not, advising them of what's wrong. So from a seller, it's the other way around, satisfying the buyer, obviously. So and that's why it's really important from the seller. I would say more can be done to influence time frame and actually keeping transactions together by the seller being organised. I think that is the key thing, because the more organised they are, the more that can be given on day one. Yeah. Because really, from a seller's lawyer's point of view, so if we're acting for a seller, we compile a draft contract, that gets sent to the buyer's lawyer. They can start on. It might be they have 10 inquiries to raise, they might have 30, but if they can be satisfied fairly quickly. That's, in a nutshell, I know that sounds very straightforward, that's the legal work done. Yeah. So once it's asking questions and getting responses. Yeah. Legal work's done. That can take weeks and weeks, depending on how in depth those questions are, whether we then need to then go back to the seller to actually find out more, whatever it is. Sure.
But again, the more prepared the seller is, the earlier on, the easier it is for the conveyancing process.
And in most cases, you can get inquiries, and it's like the more packaged up we are, bang, we can go straight back. Yeah. So rather than having to go back and forth and back and forth.
So is this where this reform might reduce time? Because I'm guessing you're almost having to provide like a service history.
Pre-pack.
Essentially, yeah. But you remember the days of HIPs, like Home Information.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was an idea to try. Did it do anything? Not really. So I don't want to be negative. Hopefully this will change, and it will change for the good. It can't get any worse. I think it's a fair thing to say. So we try and make good of a bad system. I think at the moment it's probably the right thing to say. Yeah. But the good, on a positive note, there are still so many deals which can go through so quickly. Yeah. If people are organised. And most people who get frustrated, if they look back and thought, what could I have done? That's what can be done. So I think there is, to sort of summarise, there's so many variables as to why transactions take. I'm not sat here saying that they should take 16, 18, 20 weeks. They should not. Nowhere near. A transaction really, 6 to 8 weeks, you think, do you know what, it's reasonable. Yeah. And it would kind of fit with people. It's a big move. Moving house is a big thing. If someone goes and makes an offer on a house, the seller's like, well, I've got an offer. They don't particularly want to be moving out 3-4 weeks. They need a bit of time normally to actually move. So like 6 to 8 weeks should be normal. And in so many cases, there's so many of our transactions which happen in that time frame. But equally, you should be freed up to do something within a week.
Imagine how less fall through ratio would be if it was 6 to 8 weeks.
Absolutely.
It's staggering.
It would, yeah.
Yeah, time kills deals.
Yeah.
And it gets worse because the longer it goes on for, the more work that gets put in. Yeah. Also, you've got to start again. Yeah. We even if we get re-instructed and acting for the seller, we probably got to start again from scratch because another buyer's lawyer is going to ask new questions.
Different questions, yeah.
And because we don't we're not going to be benefiting from a full fee until it goes through. We want to make sure we work together to get it through.
So would it be safe to say that the common mistake would be preparation for buyers and sellers
Totally.
that will, prevent them time, money, stress?
Without a doubt. And actually, I was going to come on to ask in a second about any tips or top tips that you have. But I mean, my main takeaway from this is just getting legally ready as quickly as you can in order to allow that transaction to proceed as quickly as possible.
But there needs to be more done to make a vendor or a buyer what you need to do to be legally ready.
Absolutely.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
You obviously you sell a house, and there's a certain documents, isn't there, that you're going to end up having to provide. Let's say you've got fence certificates and things like that, but there's so many people out there that don't quite understand. They'll have their windows replaced. I won't even know what a fence certificate actually covers.
Or potentially what one is.
Or potentially what one is, yeah, exactly. So I think needs to be more education on that as well.
We've recently implemented a roadmap though, haven't we?
Yeah,
to be given out to buyers and sellers, and I think that also helps the process.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. We're like you, we're quite focused on trying to make sure transactions turn around as quickly as possible. And our aim is to try and reduce our fall through rate, obviously increase the speed. So we're just trying to influence that as much as we can. So it's a really simple roadmap document that highlights the key steps. We've got a more detailed version that gets sent out when a client instructs, and with a memo of sale. So they understand, right, these are these steps, this is the process. And obviously what we've just talked about aligns, because we've said you need to get legally ready as early as possible. And it'll shave days, weeks, potentially months off the transaction time.
Yeah, it's important because people don't do it very often. Like at most, they might move every 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. But I reckon probably, I don't know, as a guess, but probably half of the people we deal with probably either have never moved or haven't moved for like 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
So a lot, it's funny because they'll say, "Oh, I bet it's all changed." I'm like, sort of say, "I wish it had." Like,
Literally hasn't.
But still, they forget. What do I need to do? And it's like I live and breathe it every day. But when it actually comes to your own one, you think, "Well, I've got to do it." When you actually, right, it's me doing it. It's kind of like, "Oh, okay," because you're not. The majority of people are not doing it all the time.
Absolutely.
So it is a point about education, and anything like that in terms of helping point where a buyer needs to go, where a seller needs to go, is only going to help.
It's a great point because we do it day in, day out. As you say, we live and breathe it. And I moved in January, and I remember getting the pack through, the seller's pack to complete, and the protocol forms and the fixtures and fittings form. And I looked at it, and it was an absolute wedge. And I thought, I'll leave that until tomorrow. And then, of course, tomorrow never comes in that sense. So I was probably guilty of delaying things by a week or two. Most people do that, and it's just giving them that level of understanding.
It's easily done.
You can't do it.
I think even at the point of getting evaluation, if you speak about the conveyancing process then, so that they're ready for, what's to follow, at the time that they then accept an offer, half the time they could have, already decided on a conveyancer and started filling out those forms.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, you're right.
It's entirely beneficial, and if you think about that, there's a lot of agents that will go out and have a chat on evaluation, and they won't cover that. So that would be a win from our side because it
I
shows
think it's hugely beneficial
what
to
we
do
can
that.
offer that other agents perhaps can't as well. So aside from that, any other top tips or expert tips that you could think to give a buyer or seller who's about to embark on their journey?
I think we like to just speak to anyone as early as possible, so we can then. I mean, there's a lot of people who are unsure about a certain part of the transaction. It might be that they want we might quote for a potential buyer. They've not found a property yet. We're not going to start telling them how to negotiate. But if I speak to a client, I'm happy to give some kind of advice in terms of what might help. We're happy to give advice sort of where needed to try and help make the process easier.
Yeah.
So, but obviously so many different variables in terms of if someone wants to make a lower offer on something or whatever it is. But I think we're all ears to try and help with anyone that needs it.
Perfect, which is exactly what people
And
want.
I think a good bit of feedback that I've had, certainly from people from Barnt Green, Alvechurch, Cofton, Blackwell, when they do speak to you at Montpellier, you've not put pressure on. It's been a very informal conversation, and they've felt really, really confident that you're going to be the right conveyancer for them.
So I think it's natural, I think, for anyone to be afraid of talking to a solicitor or a lawyer. It's like, oh my God, they're going to speak like a different language.
It's quite formal.
We try and dumb it down in the nicest way and try and just get on their page and just try and talk at their language.
Yeah.
That is
The feedback's been great.
Yeah, we do. Brilliant. That's good to hear because I think we tried to make sure that one, it's not pressured, two, it's informative, and three, they're coming off the back of speaking to an estate agent.
Yeah.
Typically, estate agents don't talk the same lingo as solicitors and lawyers.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think when you speak to a solicitor or a law firm, whoever you're going to use for your conveyancing transaction, it's like gobbledygook.
Yeah.
You said then about big. It's old fashioned. It's hard to understand. I think it makes people. I think if the process was easier, lots more people would move.
Yeah.
If they could go into it thinking this isn't going to be as stressful, I understand how the process works, the market would actually be way more healthy than it is. So.
Totally agree. You go from thinking, well, that's going to take 6 months in
Yeah.
essence,
Yeah.
to 4 to 6 weeks, which we've spoken about with some of the other countries.
Yeah.
So slightly off piece before we close, with that glowing intro that I gave, I mentioned that you're the EV record holder, land speed record holder. Just tell us a bit more about that. That sounds really cool to me.
Yeah, it's like a stark difference of sitting behind a desk,
Yeah.
not going anywhere.
This is the other side.
It's going really fast.
Yeah. So I was a racing driver. I started in go-karts when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
Had dreams of being a Formula 1 driver, which very quickly diminished when you realise you haven't got any money. And a local energy company, so Ecotricity, a guy called Dale Vince, who owns that, who I knew, he was said at the time, electric cars weren't really a thing. The Nissan Leaf was the car. It was like a noddy car called it. And he said that I think we need to dispel the myth that electric cars are boring and they're slow. And he said, I'm gonna build a car which is going to go really fast. So he bought a car off eBay, a Lotus for 10 grand. Spent £1 million converting it into an electric car, just to literally prove a point. We got together, said that he was happy for me to drive the car, probably thinking if he drives it, what's going to happen? But yeah, I was young and kind of thinking, well, yeah, let's just try and do it. But so we tested it. We had 2 separate test days. I mean, you've got a Lotus, which probably do about 110 miles an hour. We were doing like 150. The front nose is literally coming off the ground. So it was a bit sketchy, but we did it 2012, 151 miles an hour, I think it was. So back then, it was like, wow, it's a big thing. It was like covered on BBC World News. But I mean, it shows how far we've come now in terms of EVs, electric cars. That most road electric cars will probably be not far off that. So it was good fun. It was an experience. Load of attention around it at the time. So
Did that get you into the Prime series then?
Not quite. I mean, sort of. I suppose it helped with profile a little bit. So what started that part of my career, I guess, was just a love of cars. Got an opportunity to have a caterum for a weekend. So a friend of mine was associated with Caterham, and they said, look, there's a car. You can write about it, do what you want with it. And I just thought, you obviously watch Top Gear, Grand Tour, Fifth Gear. I'm like, I'd rather film it rather than write about it. So we filmed something, did it, and they liked it, and then we did a few, and then we sounds like a nice plug. It sort of one thing led to another. I got the opportunity to present with a channel called Love Cars. So the Stig, Ben Collins, he was my fellow presenter. Tiffany Dale, who was on Fifth Gear and Top Gear for a number of years, and then Paul Woodman, who owns the show. So. And we went to great countries, drove amazing cars, obviously worked with really cool people, and that's now on Amazon Prime.
Fantastic.
Right. What an experience.
And have you stopped doing that now? Has Montpellier Legal taken over your life to the point
Montpellier Legal takes over all my life. In a good way, it was more of like a passion, like hobby type thing, really, because it was purely done as enjoyment. Like, obviously you watch these car shows and it's super fun, thinking if I can, but it's the Richard Hammond, Jeremy Clarkson, James May, pretty much the only 3 presenters in the world who've actually done something with a car show. So it's like the dream of going to be a Formula 1 driver. It's like, it's probably more fun to live it as a hobby rather than actually think I'm going to really pursue it as a paid career.
The reality.
So I still do a bit of filming now. We've got another show which is going to be going out probably later in the year on Amazon, which is like a motorsport special of the car show. There's always little bits going on, but it's good fun.
That sounds amazing. Well, that's something for us to look out for. Well, look, with that probably wraps us up for today. So a huge thank you from all of us for coming on. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. And so next time, we haven't decided on the venue yet. No. It's going to be in Solihull, we think. And it's our 10th episode. How have we made it to episode 10? I'm incredibly unsure. Great to see you all again, and we'll see you next month for our 10th episode.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.